dinner waiting on the stove, a half-empty glass of wine, and the sound of rain tapping against the kitchen window. But that was before the doorbell rang, before everything in my life started to feel like it had been flipped inside out. I wasn't expecting anyone. My husband, Daniel, was out of town for work, again, and I'd told myself I was fine with it. That was the lie I lived with most days. Married 12 years, and lately, it felt like we only talked through reminders and receipts. Still, I told myself that was normal. Everyone gets busy. Everyone drifts, right? The bell rang again, sharper this time. When I opened the door, I froze. It was Ryan, my husband's younger brother. He stood there, soaked from the rain, hair plastered to his forehead, eyes full of something I couldn't read. He used to visit sometimes, years ago. We were close back then, before life made everything complicated. "Hey," he said, voice low. "Sorry for dropping by. I just didn't know where else to go." I let him in, though part of me knew I shouldn't. The smell of rain followed him inside. That mix of cold air and something restless. He looked older than I remembered, tired in a way that didn't come from work. "Is Daniel okay?" I asked, trying to sound casual. He hesitated. "He's fine. I just need to talk to someone." I didn't push. I made tea, like always, and the kitchen filled with quiet, that heavy kind of silence where both people have too many words trapped behind their teeth. That's when my phone buzzed. It was a message from Lena, my closest friend. She and her husband, Mark, had been out celebrating their anniversary. I smiled at the photo she sent, the two of them laughing, wine glasses raised. For a second, it felt nice to see something simple, something good. Then her text followed. "You won't believe who we just ran into." Before I could reply, there was another message, this time a photo. Blurry, dim restaurant lighting, but my heart stopped. Daniel was there, my husband, sitting across from someone who wasn't supposed to be there. The tea kettle screamed on the stove, and I turned it off too late, water spilling, steam fogging the air between me and Ryan. He looked at me then, really looked like he already knew, like maybe this was the reason he came. "Clara," he said quietly, "there's something you need to know." The words hung there, trembling between us, louder than the rain, sharper than the silence that followed. And that's when I realized both my friend's husband and my husband's brother were about to change everything I thought I knew about love, loyalty, and betrayal. For a moment, I just stood there, holding the phone like it was something dangerous. The image on the screen blurred as my hand shook. Daniel's face caught mid-laugh, his arm resting a little too close to a woman who definitely wasn't supposed to be there. Ryan was still watching me, his expression unreadable. I wanted to ask him what he meant, what he knew, but the words wouldn't come out. It felt like the room had shrunk around us, steam, rain, and all that unspoken history pressing down on the air. I finally said, "You said there was something I needed to know." "About what?" He looked away, running a hand through his wet hair. "It's complicated," he said quietly, "and I don't want to be the one to tell you, but I can't just keep pretending I don't know." That word, pretending, stuck, because that's what I'd been doing for months. Pretending the distance between Daniel and me was normal. Pretending I didn't notice when his calls got shorter, when his excuses got longer. But it hadn't always been like that. We met in college. I was the one who always had a plan, and he was the one who never followed one. Somehow we balanced each other out. 12 years later, that balance had quietly tipped into something colder, smaller. Ryan, on the other hand, had always been different. He was the kind of person who noticed things others didn't. Maybe that's why we'd always gotten along too easily, back when he still came around for Sunday dinners. But after Daniel and I started drifting, Ryan stopped visiting. I assumed he was just busy. Now, standing there, I realized there was more to it. He finally spoke again. "Clara, I saw Daniel. With her. Her." My voice cracked a little. He nodded. "It's been going on for a while, I think." I didn't want to believe it, but he stopped himself, shaking his head. "You deserve to know." For a second, I couldn't feel anything. Not anger, not sadness. Just that dull emptiness that comes when something breaks too quietly to make sound. I looked at the photo again. My best friend's husband, Mark, was in the background of the picture, laughing completely unaware. Somehow, that made it worse. all our lives overlapping in ways that didn't make sense yet. I turned to Ryan. Why are you telling me this now? His eyes flickered uncertain. Because it's not just Daniel. Mart's involved too. And Lena, she's not who you think she is. The rain outside had stopped, but inside, the quiet was heavier than ever. Something told me that whatever was coming next, none of us were ready for it. For a long moment, the only sound in the kitchen was the soft hum of the refrigerator. I felt like I was standing on the edge of something I didn't want to look down into. Ryan, I said finally, keeping my voice low. Start from the beginning. Please. He hesitated, glancing toward the window, where the rain had turned into a faint drizzle. It's not something I want to get involved in, he said. I saw Daniel a few weeks ago. He was at that new restaurant near the pier, not with coworkers, not with family, just someone else. And then I realized who it was. I braced myself. Who? He met my eyes, and for a second, I saw something like guilt flicker through his. Lena. The name felt heavier than I expected. My best friend. The person who sent me that photo just hours ago. The one who smiled at me through phone screens, who shared recipes and inside jokes. You're sure? I asked, my voice quieter now. I wish I wasn't. I sat down at the kitchen table, trying to make sense of the puzzle that had suddenly rearranged my whole life. My husband, my best friend, their spouses, all tangled in something none of us had seen coming. Ryan leaned against the counter, arms crossed. I thought maybe it was just a one-time thing, but I've seen them twice since then. They weren't hiding very well. I wanted to ask why he hadn't told me sooner, but I already knew the answer. Nobody wants to be the one to break someone else's world apart. When I finally spoke, my voice trembled. And Mark? Does he know? Ryan shook his head. I don't think so. He's been talking to Daniel about some business deal lately, completely unaware. It was too much betrayal wrapped inside normal life. A dinner table of familiar faces suddenly felt like a crime scene. And yet, under the shock, something else stirred, confusion, maybe even fear. Ryan looked at me with an intensity that made it hard to breathe. It wasn't just pity. It was something else, something unspoken. He stepped closer. I didn't want to come here tonight, he admitted softly. But I couldn't stand watching you keep defending him anymore. I looked up at him, and for the first time, I realized there was more between us than I'd ever allowed myself to see. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed again. A new message from Lena. Can we talk? It's not what it looks like. Ryan's jaw tightened as he saw the screen. Don't answer that, he said quickly. But my thumb was already hovering over open. Because sometimes the truth doesn't wait for permission. I opened Lena's message before I could talk myself out of it. The words glowed against the screen, almost shaking in my hand. Please don't jump to conclusions. I need to explain. Can I come over? My chest tightened. Part of me wanted to throw the phone across the room. Another part needed to see her face, to hear why. Ryan saw the look on my face and shook his head. Clara, don't let her twist this. They've both been lying to you. His voice cracked a little, and that was what made me pause. There was more emotion there than anger, something that sounded almost personal. I whispered, You sound like you've been through this before. He looked away. I've seen enough to know how it ends. The clock on the wall ticked too loudly. Every second stretched. I could feel the house holding its breath. I finally said, If she's coming, I need to hear her out. Ryan's shoulders tensed. Then I'm staying. You shouldn't face her alone. I didn't argue. Maybe I didn't want to. 15 minutes later, headlights swept across the front windows. I felt the weight of those lights like a spotlight on everything I'd been pretending not to see. When the doorbell rang, I opened it slowly, and there she was. Lena, her hair damp from the rain, her expression somewhere between panic and guilt. Clara, she said softly, stepping inside. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. Ryan crossed his arms, his presence suddenly filling the room. Then what did you mean to happen? She glanced at him, then back at me. It started months ago. We were all spending time together, dinners, calls, little favors. I thought I was helping. I didn't realize how far things had gone until... She stopped herself, biting her lip. Until what? I asked. Her eyes glistened. Until it wasn't just me and Daniel anymore. Mark found out. I froze. What? Lena nodded, tears gathering. He's been pretending not to know. He told Daniel he'd keep quiet, but he's planning something. I don't know what. Ryan stepped closer. Planning what, Lena? She hesitated, lowering her voice. He said he was done being humiliated, that he'd make sure everyone paid for it. The air in the room turned heavy. For the first time, fear crept in where betrayal had been. I looked at Ryan. His expression changed, protective, almost fierce. Outside, thunder rolled in the distance. The kind that warns you the real storm hasn't even started yet. And standing there, with Lena shaking and Ryan staring out into the dark, I realized the truth wasn't the only thing coming for us. Something else was. The room felt smaller by the second. Lena stood near the door, twisting her ring around her finger like she was trying to erase something that had already happened. Ryan hadn't moved. His eyes were fixed on her, cold, sharp, protective in a way that made me both grateful and uneasy. "Mark knows everything," she said again, voice trembling. "He saw the messages, the calls. He's been pretending, waiting for the right moment." I swallowed hard. The right moment for what? She hesitated. To expose all of us. He said he wanted everyone to feel what he felt, cornered, betrayed, alone. Ryan stepped forward. "You think he's serious?" "I've never seen him like this," Lena whispered. "He's angry, but quiet about it. That's the worst kind." I sank into a chair, the wood creaking beneath me. I couldn't tell if I was shaking from fear or exhaustion. Everything that had once been safe, friendship, marriage, trust, now felt like a web closing in. Ryan rubbed a hand over his face. "We need to tell Daniel," he muttered. I looked up sharply. "You think I owe him a warning? After what he's done?" The words came out harsher than I meant. The silence that followed was thick. Ryan finally exhaled and met my eyes. "Not for him. For you. Whatever Mark's planning, you shouldn't be caught in the middle." Before I could answer, a sudden knock rattled the front door. We all froze. Lena's eyes widened. "That's him," she whispered. I felt my pulse jump. The knock came again, firmer this time, deliberate. Ryan moved toward the door, every muscle in his body tense. "Stay behind me," he said quietly. I didn't argue. When he opened it, Mark stood there calm, too calm. His shirt was still damp from the rain, his smile faint and unreadable. "Evening," he said, eyes shifting from Ryan to me, then to Lena. Quite the gathering. Lena's voice cracked. "Mark, please," he raised a hand. "Don't. I'm not here to make a scene. Not yet." He stepped inside, uninvited, like he owned the air around him. "I just came to return something." He reached into his coat pocket and set a small black flash drive on the table. "That's everything. Messages, calls, photos." I thought it was fair that everyone saw the truth before I decided what to do next. Lena covered her mouth, shaking. I couldn't breathe. Ryan took a step closer. "What do you want from her?" Mark's smile faded. "Nothing. I already have what I need. The truth always does the rest." He turned toward the door, his voice lowering. "You might want to check your phone, Clara. Daniel's been trying to call." The door clicked shut behind him. My phone vibrated on the counter, the screen lighting up with Daniel's name, again and again. Ryan looked at me, his jaw tight. "Don't answer." But deep down, I already knew I would. Because when your life starts unraveling, sometimes you have to hear it fall apart in real time. Daniel's name kept flashing on the screen, the sound of each vibration cutting through the thick silence. I didn't move. I couldn't. Ryan finally reached over, picked up the phone, and set it in front of me. "Clara," he said softly, "if you're going to face this, do it now. No more guessing." My hand shook as I pressed accept. For a few seconds, all I heard was static. Then Daniel's voice, strained, almost desperate. "Clara, please listen. Don't believe what you've seen. Mark's trying to ruin us." I swallow, my throat tight. "So there is something to believe then?" He sighed, and that silence between words told me everything before he said a thing. "It wasn't supposed to happen," he whispered. She was just there when everything between us started falling apart. I didn't mean for it to go that far." I looked at Lena, who stood frozen near the doorway, her face pale and wet with tears. Ryan's jaw tightened beside me. "Daniel," I said quietly, "you should know that Mark's been here. He has everything. Every message. Every call." The line went quiet. Then Daniel's voice dropped low. "Don't open that drive, Clara. You don't understand. Something in his tone shifted. Not guilt anymore, but fear. Real fear. Ryan frowned. What don't we understand? Daniel hesitated. It's not just about us. Mark's been digging into my work files. If that drive has what I think it does, he's not only exposing the affair, he's exposing something that could get us all in trouble. The words hit like ice water. Trouble? I repeated. Daniel exhaled sharply. Just don't let him control the story, Clara. Don't trust anything you see. Before I could ask more, the call dropped. Ryan turned to me, his expression darkening. What is he talking about? I opened the flash drive, ignoring the tremor in my fingers. Folders blinked to life. Not just photos and messages, but financial documents, emails, transfers I didn't recognize. Numbers, names, dates, and Daniel's company logo stamped at the top of every file. Lena gasped. Oh my God. Ryan stared at the screen. He's been hiding more than an affair. I felt my knees weaken, the floor tilting beneath me. My husband hadn't just betrayed our marriage. He'd dragged us all into something bigger, something dangerous. Ryan closed the laptop gently. We need to leave. Now. But before we could move, headlights swept across the windows again, too bright, too close. Lena whispered, That's not Mark's car. A knock echoed through the house, firm, deliberate. Then a voice, calm, unfamiliar. Mrs. Clark? We need to speak with you about your husband. And just like that, the truth I'd been running from was standing on my doorstep. The knock came again, louder this time. Ryan instinctively stepped in front of me, but I found my voice before he could move. It's okay, I whispered. We can't hide from this anymore. When I opened the door, 2 officers stood there under the porch light. The rain had stopped, leaving the night heavy and still. Mrs. Clark, the taller one asked gently. Your husband, Daniel Clark, has been taken into custody. We believe he's been involved in an ongoing fraud investigation. We need you to come with us to answer a few questions. For a moment, I couldn't speak. Fraud. The word echoed in my mind, distant and unreal. I just nodded. Ryan's hand brushed my shoulder, steady grounding. Lena stood behind us, pale and shaking. This is my fault, she whispered. If I hadn't, I turned to her. No, we all made choices, just different ones. The officers asked to collect Daniel's files, and Ryan helped gather the flash drive and laptop. The whole time, no one spoke. It felt like the quiet after a storm. Not peace exactly, but the sound of things finally settling. By the time they left, dawn was beginning to color the edges of the sky. The first light fell through the kitchen window, landing on a mess we'd made. Empty cups, rain-soaked footprints, the small wreckage of one long night. Lena left quietly. She didn't look back, and I didn't ask her to stay. Some friendships end not with a fight, but with silence. Ryan stayed. He didn't try to fix it or explain it away. He just sat with me at the kitchen table, where everything had started. For once, the silence between us didn't feel heavy. It just was. After a while, he said, You didn't deserve any of this, Clara. I shook my head. Maybe not. But maybe this is what I needed, to finally stop pretending everything was fine. Outside, the sky lightened from gray to pale gold. The kind of morning that makes you believe in second chances, even if you're not sure what they look like yet. Ryan poured the last of the cold coffee into 2 mugs. It was bitter but warm. What happens now, he asked. I looked out the window, the street quiet, the world still turning, and let out a small, tired laugh. Now, I said, I start over. He smiled faintly. Then you're already doing it. For the first time in years, I felt something close to calm. The truth had broken everything apart, but maybe that was the only way for something honest to begin. And as the sun finally rose, I realized that sometimes the biggest surprise isn't who betrays you, but who stays when everything else falls apart.